Hello and welcome to the video. This video is entitled Why Christianity is Just a Scheme to Steal Your Hard-Earned Money. If I mean, I wonder how many churches I've actually been to in my life and found that they're all the same. You know, the pastor thinks he's entitled to 10% of everybody's income with a offering on top of that. And so the pastor is almost always the richest person in the congregation, unless a baseball or basketball player walks into the place. But it's a Ponzi scheme, is what Christianity is. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's not about serving the real God. It's I knew a guy that was living in a group home, and his rent in the group home was $700 a month, and I think his check was only a little over $1,000. So you got to eat and you got to buy clothes from time to time and whatnot. Well, the nearby church pastor had sent buses out to all these places because he had turned his church into a giant business, which is what they're all are. They're just a business that the pastor used to get rich. So what he was doing to his money making scheme for church was to hire buses to pick up everybody that he could possibly convince to come to church, so that he could convince them to pay tithe. So when this dirt poor man got to the church, the pastor demanded that he pay tithe, and his response to the pastor was, "Are you going to pay my rent this month?" "Hell no, I'm not paying you tithe." All right. And speaking of which, about a third to one half of Americans right now are struggling to even pay rent now, thanks to Joe Biden's economy that drove the price of everything through the roof. So his response was, "Are you going to pay my rent?" And the pastor's like, "No." "Then hell no, I'm not paying you tithe." Where do you get off, Christian preachers, thinking that everybody owes you 10% of their entire life's income? You're a thief. You're not a man of God. You're a thief. And the other thing is, Christians, pastors, all call one another apostles and prophets and doctors. And first of all, the word apostle is originally was supposed to mean someone who eyewitnessed or claimed to have eyewitnessed the death and resurrection of Jesus, which I don't think any of them did. But because if you read the Gospels, none of them were actually standing there when he died. But so they're lying when they call themselves apostles, and they're lying when they call themselves doctors. You don't need a PhD to read the Bible. It's considered fifth grade elementary education level. The only hard words in it to pronounce or understand are the proper names of locations and some people in the Bible. But the prose is considered fifth grade education level. You're a thief and you're a fraud. You ever notice that Christians never admit when they've done something wrong either, because they think they're saved by just the death of Jesus? They never admit, like, if God could literally send a tornado and wipe their church off of its foundation, as has happened many times, and the pastor is going to sit there and say, "This was just a random storm. It has nothing whatsoever to do with anything." There is no such thing as randomness in the real universe. In the Bible, it says that God controls the weather. His hand is in the whirlwind, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. So if your church got wiped out by a hurricane or tornado, you ought to repent to God and ask him why it got wiped out, and an awful lot of them have been wiped out in the United States, and I don't think a single person has repented to God and asked why. And I know the answer why, but if I say it here on YouTube, I'm going to get banned for hate speech. I'll go ahead and say it anyway. It's homosexuality and child molestation. We got more child molesters in the Christian church than we do on the outside of the Christian church, especially in the Catholic Christian church, but it's both the Protestant and Catholics. And the government of the United States never prosecutes them. They just let them get off scot free every time. God is a personal being, and knowing God is a personal matter. You don't need a church, and you do not need a pastor to know God and obey God. It's a personal choice. Church has absolutely nothing to do with your relationship with God. Church is a Ponzi scheme designed to steal your money and give it to the owner pastor of the church.